Welcome back to the second part of this coding along tutorial, where we are building a student portfolio site. As you might see on the screen, I have already created the content page with some dummy data, of course. Again, styling is not my strong suit. Don't blame me for it, but I do know React and I'm going to teach it to you right now. So a couple of things we're going to be handling in this session is nested routes, unique routes, and data loading. So actually having useful data to work with. So it's a lot, so let's just jump right into it. So the first thing we're going to do, if we click on student 1, we break our page, we want that to be fixed and we want it to move that basically this page is loaded in with the correct data. It's going to take some steps, but let's first of all make sure that we add another path on this click. So on this click, we go to student 1. Well, that doesn't exist, so let's create a new path in here. Let's create it after the about. Let's go. So the path is not going to be error, but it's going to be student. And then something that is useful sometimes is the ID. So this is what we call a parameter. So student/1 or student/2 will be the unique ID of the student. We will be using it later on, not now, but it's handy to already have it ready. So with that path, we have a, we will render the content block. And we will import it. Thank you, AI. Cannot resolve content. Why not? In src, it's in components. See, the AI is sometimes drunk as well. Components, done. All right. So the moment I click on this, we should be navigating to this, and oh, this is not really what we want. As you might not see, but here it says student/2. If I go back, student/3. If I go back again, student/1. Again, I can click on the back button, but I'm just using the mouse button on the side of my mouse to go back. What's the problem? Because we want this to be updated. Well, we can do that by having children of a route, or what we call nested routes. So to create a nested route below this one, we need to add a parameter called children. And the path is going to be student dash, well, basically this. So we're going to remove it from here. We're going to add it here. Children is not with a capital C, I think, comma. And I think that should do it. Let's see, we have some syntax errors ready. Another one. The amount of brackets is just too damn high. Come on, I'm missing something. What is it saying? So we have children. Children. Oh, this shouldn't be here. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So children is an array of different paths. So in this case, we're gonna load in content, and that is it. But of course, something is wrong because we're not doing our job. We see a refresher as well, which we will be fixing in a short while. But to render a child, we need to provide a place to render it. So we are in the root component, which is in home. Here, the content needs to be can be different. So we are going to remove content, and we are going to place outlet. An outlet will be filled in with whatever child is actually rendered in here. So now this, well, it defaults apparently to at least one of them. This child, basically, we are going to fill in with the route that is clicked on. So click on this, and we go to student/1. which is this path, and it's going to be render the content element. The reason we still have something here is because the content is loaded. Later on, when we will be inputting data, so student 2 is going to be loaded, so this is going to be refreshed. We can tell it to, like, if you have no data, don't render it. This is just static data, and that is the reason why we have it. Now, you might have noticed something. It's very small, but the moment I click on a link, you see this flashing. That means that my whole page is basically reloading, navigating to this element. We don't want that, because this means that every click we are communicating with the server and getting the complete site back. So we're going to change this behavior by moving to client-side routing. That means that it's going to look inside the application to how routing is supposed to be, instead of communicating each time with a server. So what are these links? Well, these are anchor tags. So let's change those anchor tags in the sidebar. Let's go here. We have anchor tags. So we're going to change these to links. These are also from React Router. Link 2. The 2 is going to be student 1, for example. Now, of course, it's going to mess up my styling a bit, I think, but let's see what happens. Can I surround this by a... yeah, it's going to be ugly as well. Let's surround this by a small div. Hop. Okay. That should do it. Well, the fact that it stays blue, we need to the fact that it stays blue, we need to actually clear with CSS, but that's doable. So you can change these hrefs to a link, and that link will be used for client-side routing from now on. All right, now it's time to actually get in some real data. So student 1, 2, 3, that's fancy and all, but let's use something that we have learned in the previous session and implemented here, namely fetch some data, now actually real data from an online API, and make sure that this list is unique. So this might be a very good time to pause and try it out yourself. So what we are going to do, we are going to create a service. Again, let's make it data. Whoops, data. And I am going to create a file called data service. Or you know what? Let's student service. So everything from students is managed in here. You're going to make a function here that fetches data from JSON placeholder. JSON placeholder is a default, is a standard test API that gives you dummy data. The fun thing is it has /users, which gives you an array of 10 users, which is perfect for what we need. So it's just this URL that you can use, and you can try it. Let's see what the AI says. Give me a list of students fetched from and return them as a list. Function. Get students. Done. So we can fine tune here somewhat. Again, this is the basic get students. You can, what I would suggest is create this service. Make sure that you have the sidebar loaded, and try to make a map function here of all those students. So use the use effect function for the hook, and then save all the students in here, and show them in links. I'll wait and I'll see you in a couple of seconds. All right, for those who just want to follow along, let's go with this. So first of all, I'm going to finalize my service because the AI doesn't do very good job with that. Export defaults async. Whoops, async function, and then we response is await rate, and then of course response.json return await response.json. That should do it. We don't want li elements from a data service, we just want the raw data response. All right, this is the function for the data. Now let's use it in the sidebar. Again, we can use the use effect function here. Use effect, and if I want to call it in here, use effect, we are we're just gonna call it once. That's it. So an empty dependency array should suffice, and we're gonna save our students in here. Const students. And then use state, an empty student array for now. Use state we also need to implement. And then the use effect will fetch that, what is it here? The student service. Get student, let me check. I think we can do get students from the student service. Then and set students. That should do it. So this will, before you can even continue with the map function, I suggest to check the components to see if your state has been filled in correctly. So components, not router, we need to go to, not sidebar, yes, sidebar. As you can see, we have 10 students. Leanne Graham, perfect. Well, Leanne, you will be rendered here in beautiful fashion with a very simple map function. Voila. This is done. And look at that on the right side. Perfect, perfect. Just what we need. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Curtis Wisenut. Well, the next step would, of course, be to click on this and load the correct thing in. Well, we have now added real data to the actual sidebar, which are fictional characters at this point. When I click on it, of course, I want the correct name to present here. And that's done with the student ID. Now, the next step would be to fix that. And how are we going to do that? Well, there is a functionality that is retrieved from React Router DOM, is called the loader data. Let's take a look at that. So getting the loader data into the content component, which is this one here. So we're going to change Mike and Derek and my first and last name. We're going to change that with actual some details. Now, to start with that, what we basically are telling React is that whenever this component is loaded or navigated to, you need to load in data based on where you came from or based on a certain detail. So remember that route that we had here? So student ID. This ID is what we call a parameter, as it were. And we can call that with, or we can access that inside a loader function and then get some specific details. Now, how are we going to do that? We are going to fetch it immediately from JSON placeholder again. So if I do users/1, I'm going to get ID Leanne again. If I do 7, I think it was, Let me check. Curtis. Curtis is here as well. So then we have all of the details for Curtis. So we want that to automatically happen when you navigate to that path. So, and this router says that when we click it, we navigate to this path with this component. So let's go to content and make sure that we can use the loader logic for it. So when we have the content, we can always use the hook because most things here are hooks. So const, I'm gonna destruct it from a student, and I am going to be using use loader data. All right. So use loader data is not known. If you want to import it, we need to import it from React router DOM. And the funny thing is that now we can create an extra function inside of this file. So the generic file name for this is called loader, and we're going to keep to this convention for now. So we're going to export a function here. So why we export it, you will see in a second. It already tries to fetch it immediately, but we have a service where we do all the student communication with. So we're going to do that. First of all, I'm going to close this. And this loader is going to return a student data, so some student data, as you might see here. That student data is going to be filled in, and then we will get, let's say, just student first name and student last name should suffice. Student, we have a name, and we have a username. You know what? I'll do the name and then the email. So we have the student.name. Bye nice color scheme. And the email will be student.email. So if we see that changing, we know that our logic is working. Email. Now, this loader function is going to call on our service. Let's create the second function here. Again, it's going to do the same. Get student based on an ID. And I'm going to export them one by one, and users slash, since we have, yeah, fine. So slash ID should be okay. And we're going to return that JSON data. Okay. Let's go back to our sidebar for a second, because here I think get students, I think that will crash. Get students is not, we'll fix that in a second, but the student service in here, we can import that in our, I think we need to bracket it. Get students. Yes. Oops, go home. Yep. That's also wrong. Perfect. Everything is broken, so we need to encapsulate this, of course. Let's go back to our content in our loader function. We need to import it first. Get student, not students. Get student. And we're going to await for this. So const student await get student. And we're going to test it out with a an ID, 7 is Curtis. Let's see if that works. And return student. Let's go back to home. Yeah, okay. So we have two things already. We have the use loader data and we have the get student. Now, the loader function itself. To tell the router to use that loader, we need to add it in here, in the actual path. So what we're going to add here is, spoiler alert, loader, and we're going to tell it to use a loader that we are importing in here. So we are going to import, let me check, content, And what are we going to import? We're going to import loader as student loader. Student loader. All right, now we are importing that function that we just created. I'm just gonna close some things here. The loader here, since we are exporting it, we can import it. We're gonna call it student loader because we're gonna add a loader function here for the main as well. And that function gets executed the moment we click on it. And as you can see, Curtis is here. Whoop. And I click on it. Let me just clear it. Now, in the main page, it's empty because there is nothing loaded. Okay, and there is no navigation to it. If I click on something, for a moment, we have defaulted Curtis. Now let's finalize that and actually make sure that we have, let me check, that we have the correct parameter. So in loader, you always get params back, or at least parameters back. And that parameter we can use params dot. And as you can see, it's already, no, that's the ID name here is based on what we called it in our route. So as you can see, /ID, if I call the ID on the params, we can get our differences. And as you can now see, Leanne, Aaron, Clementine, and of course our favorite, Mr. Curtis, is now loaded in. So now you've learned how to add that yourself. We're going to finalize this by reworking our use effect with the same loader logic. So again, we're going to do the same. You can pause now, but you can go to sidebar, and instead of using a use effect here, I want you to use a loader for this component. I'll wait. Well, enough waiting. Let's go and let's create our loader function here as well. We have our function in our service, so we don't need that. I'm just going to copy over the loader function from the content that we just created. Again, just copy paste your own code if it works. We don't need params here. We just need get students without any parameter. Students. And let me check. We are going to const, let me think. Students. Use effect can be lost. Use loader data. And we're going to import that from here as well. Use loader data. And I think that is it. D is not defined. Where is the D? D, here. All right. Error, use loader data is not defined. Where is it not defined? I am importing it. Use loader data. Again, this is troubleshooting that you should be testing out. Let me check. This will not work because, of course, what's it called? It's not in our route yet. So again, loading data, we need three parts. We need the constant with the variable and the use loader data. Second part is we need the function actually loading the data. You can do anything here. And the third part is to actually add it in your route to tell it like, hey, we are going to be loading data. And it's from sidebar. Where is it? Oh no, it's. Oh yeah, it's from sidebar. So. Sidebar loader. Et voila. Normally that should. It was not found in. Yeah, of course, it does not found in home. It's found in sidebar. refresh, 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 click, clickety, click, click, click. And now it works as well. So we have added loading data from an external source. We have added a service that can be expanded with multiple things. We have the sidebar loaded with here our loader in the sidebar, an extra function and a new variable. We have updated this map. We have, let me check, the content itself is loaded in here. So we've done quite a lot. Working with real data. We've already made it working in here. So now, you know what? Let's finalize it with the next video where we will be adding new people to this list with a form. And let's see how we handle that form as well.